for a trial to determine damages. The total could reach into the hundreds of millions of dollars. Warren Levinson, New York.
Presidential candidates may want to pay attention to young Americans and their job situation. Chris Woodward explains.
Young Americans have played major roles in the last two presidential elections. The economy and jobs were issues in both contests. Today, things are said to be improving, but Young Americans organizations believe it is far from okay. Corey Whalen Stevens with the nonpartisan Generation Opportunity comments.
Our millennial jobs report just came out when the Bureau of Labor Statistics released its report. And what we found is that youth unemployment is still at 13.9%. It has come down over the past year, but unfortunately the economy is not growing at a rate really that is necessary for my generation to have the jobs that we need.
The 13.9% figure that Stevens mentions takes into account labor force participation for 18 to 29-year-olds who have given up looking for work. The federal government uses a different rate for 18 to 29-year-olds. That comes out to 9.1%, but it's well above the national unemployment rate. Meanwhile, when you break things down by ethnicities, African Americans and Hispanics have higher rates in both cases. Unemployment is also high for women 18 to 29. I'm Chris Woodward.
Though we hear a lot about Common Core under the Obama administration, the foundation for the Core was laid by Hillary Clinton in the 1980s.
Education policy commentator Donna Garner explains Clinton and other left-leaning education reformers developed a school-to-work model in which students would be directed into jobs where the government wanted them, regardless of what students wanted.
It didn't have anything to do with students' natural desires or what their parents want them to do or what the students, their talents were. It all had to do with providing worker bees for the government. And the whole plan, as insidious as it sounded at the time, we have now seen it come to pass under Common Core.
Clinton and her ilk informally called it the cradle-to-grave model, where not just education, but people's lives would be controlled from birth until death.
And this was big government. They were, of course, moving towards socialism, and the whole idea was to put education, healthcare, and the labor issues all under the same umbrella so that students and everybody else would be tracked into the vocations that the government at the time thought were important.
Garner says this germ of an idea started by Hillary Clinton has turned into a takeover of our nation's schools with the implementation of the Common Core. I'm Bob Kellogg.
And the Commerce Department reports that wholesale businesses increased their stockpiles by a modest amount in February while sales kept falling. Download the One News Now mobile app for your Apple or Android device.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed. It has been purchased. It has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
We really do need your help. Keep this station up and running, going, and the light shining because, quite frankly, you won't hear these shows on Clear Channel. We need your help. Call Michael, 800-205-6245, 800-205-6245. You can make a pledge on your plastic. You can order a copy of today's show or past shows we've done, other shows here on the network. That helps us out. You can pick up that envelope and address it to KHNC, P.O. Box 1750, P.O. Box 1750, Johnstown, Colorado, Federal Occupation Zone 80534. Your check, your money order, much appreciated. We'll even still take the fraudulent reserve notes. Other currencies, sure. Throw them in if you got them. We'll pin them on the wall, compare colors. You could even throw in some just weights and measures. the Lord's money. At the very least, tell your friends and family. Tune in 1360 a.m. on the internet at America News Net, AmericaNewsNet.com. And call the advertisers, folks. It only takes a second. Jot their number down. Give them a call. Pat Osborne, Great Plains Power, GreatPlainsSolar.com is the website. Pat will set you up with a backup power supply all the way up to a whole house system. You can tell the electric company to come get their stinking smart meter. Check it out at GreatPlainsSolar.com. Give Pat a call, 303-239-9963. 303-239-9963. It is the mission of the National Organization for Raw Materials to maintain and add to the body of knowledge of raw material economics. Then use all possible informational means to educate an ever-growing number of American citizens and leaders. It is NORM's belief that a citizenry informed about raw material economics can return the U.S. economy to widespread and stable prosperity. My guest today, Randy Cook, president of NORM, National Organization for Raw Materials. Randy Cook, welcome.
Thanks, Randy. Always a pleasure to come and chat, try and relate what we know to people who are interested.
Well, and people that better get interested, because what they've got now is getting ready to crash and burn, and it'll be too late then, folks, for you to stand up and say, I demand an honest money system, because you don't even know what one is.
True. That is true. And it's like the old joke about yesterday I couldn't spell it, and today I are one.
Yes. Well, this whole thing, the people have been propagandized,
advertised
in mass, that the economy is just too complicated for you to understand.
Mm-hmm.
We need these folks out there with education and PhDs behind their name,
yep,
and economists and statisticians, and you need all these folks out there, because only they can understand this. So just go back to sleep, watch American Idol and Dancing with the Stars, but you better, folks, you better listen up, because what you have is going to crash.
And so it is crashing.
Yes, it is.
It has been crashing for a long, long time. Sometimes faster and sometimes slower, but it's been crashing for a long, long time. NORM has been around since 1936. And I'm not that old, at least not yet. I keep wondering if I'll ever live long enough to see my birthday recede in time, but I don't think that'll happen. Fortunately, that means that other people figured some of this stuff out, wrote it down, and made it available.
Yes.
And so I got to learn it, and you got to learn it, and some NORM members get to learn it. And anybody who wants to read the papers and look at the numbers can learn it.
It is not that complicated. Really?
It is not that complicated. In fact, these days, in addition to all your PhDs that people want, they also want long experience in the banks. Why, if you've had experience working and in the executive levels of banks, why, you're considered to be smart enough to be an economic thinker.
Yes.
And
because the economic thought and the economic holy grail is that all of a sudden in the creation out here, all of a sudden there was this credit tree.
mm-hmm.
this credit tree, this capital tree.
Right.
Capital tree it just
Created.
bloomed out, and here's all this capital, and because of that, all you folks out there are working a job, if you're lucky to have one, or you're out there preparing the fields to be planted, if you're out there bouncing around in your tractor, you're
on an oil rig.
Yeah, on an oil rig. You're out there because this capital tree just bloomed.
and the bankers picked a little bit off the capital tree and threw it in your direction.
Yeah.
Yep, that's investment. That's what that's called. It's because of investment of capital that anybody has any job at all. That's the religion of economics as it's practiced today.
But there's something wrong with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot wrong with it.
as I drive down the road, or I'm walking through the prairie, or I'm up in the mountain, or wherever, I just keep picking up all these sticks and bringing them home and putting them in the ground, and that capital tree hasn't grown any. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
If catastrophe struck, would your family...
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Have you seen the Left Behind movies? Have you read the Left Behind fictional book series? Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. Because they see the world stage shaping to fulfill what they have been led to believe is sound biblical interpretation, a Left Behind rapture scenario, this false view of prophecy is reinforced in the mind, not only of its adherents, but also includes those who have been merely exposed to the specific media. Is it possible that false prophecy can be fulfilled? The rapture theories have always been in dispute. Pre-trib, mid-trib, and post-trib disputes have risen up in exclusively evangelical circles of recent history, so that when true believers don't suddenly disappear, this element will easily go by the wayside when all see a new Jewish temple begin to be built. Will this be part of the great delusion that will come upon the whole earth? It seems that this great prophetic delusion has already overcome practically the entire American evangelical and Christian world. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. To learn more, visit crosstheborder.org. That's CROSS, crosstheborder.org. You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
Economics.org. NormEconomics.org. Upper left-hand side, punch on new stuff, go down the page to National Economic Stability Act, print that off, read it over, put it in the hands of your Congress critter, and say, here, just pass this. We've already written it up. You don't really need to read it because you don't read anything else. But we'll give you all of the credit when the economy turns around once this is passed.
Yeah, and in fact, if you want to learn about it, if you've got questions about it, if you don't understand something that's in there, join us on the conference call, and we'll talk about it.
Yes, every Saturday and Tuesday, 5 p.m. Mountain. And if we're going down rabbit trails, I'm not talking about that. Say, hey, I need to hear about the National Economic Stability Act and how we can turn this this whole thing around. You know, as I was saying, you know, I collect sticks everywhere, and I've got a real mess going out in the yard, but I put them in the ground there and wait for the capital tree to bloom and come up and then have, well, utter prosperity.
Right. Well, see, your problem is just that you're picking the wrong sticks. You don't know how close you are.
Really?
Yeah. Now, if you were to pick out a nice, let's say, crab apple, and put that in your yard, and tend it and get it growed up, and give it about 3, 4, 5 years, and prune it nicely, and feed it, make sure it doesn't dry for lack of water, and all that kind of stuff, and you wind up with crab apples. And you can harvest those crab apples, and you can turn them into jelly, or you can pick them and put them in jars and put them on the shelf. And along in about Christmas time or so, New Year's, that's pretty good eating. And by the way, that is wealth.
Really?
That is capital.
Or I could always, throw them at the jackbooted thugs when they come to the game.
First, take them out of the jars first, yes.
Oh, okay. Save the jars.
That's right, save the jars. The jars are capital.
Yes.
Yes. And the preserves inside of them are wealth.
So, you mean to tell me that piece of paper, well, I don't get them anymore, but the folks that get a piece of paper once a month or once a quarter that has a number down at the bottom, and that's how they measure their wealth, that's not really their wealth?
No, that's not wealth. That's money. Money is not wealth. Wealth is not money. Think about it. If you walk in the store and you want, let's say, a hunk of cheese, and you pick up the hunk of cheese that you want and you start heading for the front door, and you bypass the checkout counter and walk out of the door, usually a siren goes off and it goes beep, 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 beep. Somebody's trying to shoplift. Somebody's trying to walk out of here without paying. Well, yeah, you've got to pay in order to get out of there with the cheese. So what do? You exchange money for the cheese. But if the money buys the cheese buys the money, but you can't walk out the store with both your money and your cheese unless you want to get prosecuted for shoplifting. That's theft.
Okay.
And so that's a simple demonstration that shows you that wealth is not money. Money is just a claim on wealth. You get to exchange your money for wealth. And that's all we ever do. The question becomes, how do you gain your money, and who's producing the wealth? Because these days, with what we've discovered at Norm, the people who actually create the fundamental beginning wealth in our economy don't get very much money for it at all. In fact, compared to everybody else, farmers who create 2/3 of the wealth annually, 70% actually, in a balanced economic time, get paid about 37 cents on the dollar for what they create.
Not a fair trade.
That's not a very good rate. We're giving away 63 cents on every dollar's worth of stuff we produce.
But, Randy, that's so that the folks out there can get those jobs for, $7.85 an hour.
Right. Yep, or even $10.10 an hour. That's right. Yeah. It's what happens is that you have to come to grips with what's called the income equation. Everybody has the same basic understanding of where their where their pay comes from. If you got an hourly job, you work so many hours at a certain pay rate. So the hours times the pay rate is your gross income. Well, farmers, miners, oilmen, sawyers or lumbermen, fishers, we could even include recycling in the whole thing. Those basic raw material production sectors, they do the same thing. Only instead of working by the hour, most of the farmers work for the production. What they produce is the fruit of their labor. And so the wheat farmer gets paid so much per bushel for what he actually produces with his labor. He doesn't get so much an hour. He gets it by the bushel of what he produces. And that's what I'm talking about 37 cents on the dollar. The price of wheat is essentially 37% of what it should be in order for our country to produce prosperity, for us to have enough money in circulation, earned into circulation, to pay for all the processing, the distribution, and the consumption of that raw material. From that, all the rest of the economy starts. If you didn't have breakfast, lunch, or dinner today, my guess is you're kind of hungry. So everybody starts with
much good on the job come tomorrow.
That's correct. Yeah. So it starts with something to eat. I mean, first need for human life is air, and then we've got to have food, and then we got to have water, food or air and water, and from that we move to food and shelter. And shelter I would include with clothing, so that from then on, then we can start thinking about other stuff. We can think about transportation. We can think about metal tools, sharp edges. Then we can think about trying to write down what it is we know or think we've learned on paper with pencils or pens and sharing it around, or erecting a common building in our community so that we can all kind of gather together and share what we know and what we've learned, and have a discussion, talk about who's going to plow the streets, or who's going to collect the garbage, or who's going to lay the new pipes, and who's going to build the next house.
How many taxes we're going to raise on you? Yeah.
Well, yeah, we can either have taxes or we can have community effort, one or the other. I mean, you can either pay a tax on the ground you've occupied, or you can help somebody else build their house in a place where the community decides it's the right place to build the next house. And see, this is the problem with the current economic religion. I like to call it a religion because that's what it is. It's stuff that people can't prove, but they believe, and they just follow it because it's been taught to them, either in college or in a bank or supposedly in business dealings as they've grown up.
On Wall Street, yeah.
Yeah, but it's never been proved to be sound. It's the economic analysis has never actually produced prosperity here, there, or yonder. Ours has. Our economic analysis has produced prosperity. And what we say is that there's a certain price for these basic raw materials that produce prosperity. In other words, the price of raw materials at the first point of sale must be in balance with the costs of labor and capital, labor and money, and the rest of the economy. And if that happens, you will never have a depression. That's all it takes. It takes a balance between the pricing of the raw materials and the rest of the economy's costs regarding labor and money, and that's what's required for prosperity.
And you'll guess what, folks? And listen up, folks. And it's written into the statutes right now.
That's correct. It still sits in our federal, in the United States Code. Title 7, Section 602. It's right there. It's just that the they fund other things like it, but essentially they think that they have bypassed the need to even pay attention to that portion of the law. They say to themselves, oh, golly gosh, we don't want to upset the international banking cartel. We don't want to upset the WTO. We don't want to upset the Bank for International Settlements. We don't want to upset the International Monetary Fund or the World Bank or the United States Agency for International Development. We don't want to do any of those things.
Or upset NAFTA or CAFTA or...
Right, or the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Yes.
Right, the Caribbean Basin Free Trade Initiative or any of these other things. No, siree. No, we don't want to upset that stuff. No, we just want to take nothing and make money out of it and send it all around the world. And the only let's make people borrow it and pay us interest on it. It's nothing, but they won't be able to get anything else, so we'll just loan it to them.
Yes. What an idea.
Isn't that a great idea?
What an idea.
Tom Edison thought it was the greatest idea ever. He said the world's greatest inventor was the fellow who invented 6% compound interest.
Yes. Oh, but if we went to 6% compound interest today from the fraudulent reserve, the world would end.
Yeah, the world as we know it would end.
Yes. The world would end. Oh, my God.
Well, this is a frightening prospect. I mean, if the world's changed from what we're at now to what we're talking about between tonight when we're through on the radio and tomorrow morning when breakfast is ready, a lot of people would be uncomfortable because it would depend upon what you produce, what you do, as to how much money you earned. And I'm talking about what you produce in the way of a benefit to your community. And that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Because when it comes right down to it, a lot of people really enjoy not working and getting paid.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Here on the article as we go through the show, there's 19 signs that American families are being economically destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see if I can find here. Hey, I was saved by Bell.
All right.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Questions, comments, phone lines are open.
Years ahead of the dominant media, FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on Internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the Internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188. Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
And we're back. Randy Cook, my guest, president of NORM, National Organization for Raw Materials. NormEconomics.org is the website, NormEconomics.org. NORM's analysis of the U.S. economy differs from mainstream economic analysis. It is not predicated upon any, quote, economic theory, unquote, such as Keynesianism, supply side, trickle down, monetarist, etc., etc. In the 1930s, its founder, Carl H. Wilkin, began his analytical studies with no preconceived ideas or economic theory. He simply wanted to scientifically analyze the economic records of the United States government to find out what really caused the Great Depression and determine if a future depression could be prevented. NORM members have faithfully stuck to Wilkins' original premise, scientifically studying the nation's economic record and interpreting it so that current and future policies will strengthen and stabilize the U.S. economy. Here's what our 75 years of accumulated study of the nation's economic record reveals. NormEconomics.org. And for those folks, Randy, that you mentioned, like it so much of not, well, having to work.
Not having to produce anything socially beneficial.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, according to the Census Bureau, 65% of all children in the United States are living in a home that receives some form of aid from the federal government.
Right. And this is necessary because of the constant depression that we've been engineering for ourselves that started in 1953.
Yes.
So for 62 years now, we have engineered our demise, our poor economic performance. Now, in the 1960s, they told us, why you farmers are producing way too much. You're producing surpluses. You're burying us in corn and wheat and cotton and soybeans and everything. Why, you're just burying us. You're way too efficient with your production. And, gosh, I guess the only thing we'll be able to do with it is send it to poor, hungry people overseas.
Yeah.
But, of course, we'll offer them money that they can borrow to pay you as the American farmer, but we won't give you, the American farmer, a price. We'll just loan money to foreign people so they can buy from you at a cheap price. Because, after all, we all know that markets make prices, and because you produce so much, why, that's the reward you get. You produce too much, and so you don't get any price at all. And, of course, actually, back then it was even better. We got more, instead of 37 cents, we were getting around 72 cents on the dollar in the 50s, and it dropped a little in the 60s. And it's been, well, there's a chart on our website there that shows the parity ratio from 1914 through about 2010, I believe.
And it's totally
dropped. Yep. It was, there was a flat spot in 1914. It reached the same flat spot in 1925 to 29. And then it reached the same flat spot again in 1947-49, actually from 42 to 51, 41, 51. 52, I guess, is another flat spot in the chart. They occurred at different levels, but they were flat spots, which means that we were right at parity for agriculture. But not anymore. Since 1953, the parity ratio was going down and down and down and down and down. Slowly, gradually, but down nonetheless. Of course, the standard analysis by the economists is that, why, that's just a measure of you farmers as being more and more efficient with your production. Productive efficiency. You have made such wonderful gains by productive efficiency improvements that your reward is no pay at all. Let's see, does that work in industry? Let's see. Does the most productively efficient industry get rewarded with no price at all? Or is the standard industrial analysis that the more productively efficient a company becomes, the better its profit margin and the more reward to its investors, stockholders, and perhaps, if we're generous, maybe some of the labor. In other words, industry is rewarded for increasing its productive efficiency. Agriculture is punished.
So it takes John Deere or Caterpillar or Case International, their efficiency to produce the farm equipment that the farmer uses adds to their bottom line profit margin.
Right.
But yet the farmer has to turn around and says, well, I'm just going to have to grow 1,000 more bushels of wheat or corn to be able to afford the tractor.
That's right. Yep. That's the deal. Not only will I have to produce more and more bushels every year off the same amount of ground, I'm going to have to buy a bigger truck in order to haul it. That's going to cost me more money, so I'm actually worse off now.
Yeah.
Unless I can get financing. Maybe I should get financing.
Debt, yes.
Yeah, and that way I can go into debt. I can go into debt for an operating loan. I can go into debt for capital improvements. Golly gosh, look at all this thing. And then I try and manage my cash flow. Why, that's how a good manager operates. He manages his cash flow. Well, you can see that by the way this plays out, there isn't any winning hand in it. Everybody winds up borrowing because there's not enough earned income. There's not enough money paid into circulation. It all winds up being borrowed into circulation. And because it's borrowed, it has to have interest paid on it. Whereas if it's earned into circulation, it doesn't have interest paid on it. It's just earned. It circulates. And the difficulty is we can't tell the difference. When it works in the economy, you can pull those Federal Reserve notes out of your pocket, and you can't tell which one of those was earned into circulation and which one was borrowed.
Right.
They look the same.
Interesting. So, the guy out there with the radio on, flipping burgers or whatever he's doing, welding,
right. Driving in the car.
driving in the car down the interstate. You're zooming down the interstate, folks.
Or the pickup truck. Yep.
Yeah, watch out for the highwayman. Watch out for the highwayman. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Square Root Construction is.
I pledge allegiance to the King of Kings and to his kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. One holy nation and our Heavenly Father, grace, mercy, justice for all.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, 1-800-375-4188.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights media channel. You've noticed that there are few commercials on this radio network, and there's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on satellite, internet, or our various affiliates. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs on our Listen and Schedule pages. Then when you subscribe, we'll send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately and continue with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We ask you to give much less than a tithe so that you may also send support directly to a particular program, host, or cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Years ahead of the dominant media, FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
547-524. Question, comment, phone lines are open. For my guest, Randy Cook, president of NORM, National Organization for Raw Materials. NORMeconomics.org. NORMeconomics.org. Check it out. Upper left-hand side. Punch on new stuff. Scroll down to the National Economic Stability Act. Print that off. Read it. Join our conference calls every Saturday and Tuesday. And find out about this. Because we can turn this thing around. This has worked well in the past. The only problem was, Randy, it didn't enrich the bankers.
Yeah, it set it up so that those people who were able to produce efficiently enough, given the proper price for the products that we need in this country, were able to essentially self-finance. They can finance themselves. They didn't need to go to the bank to borrow money.
And that turned around and flowed through the economy.
Yeah.
That earned money turned around and flowed through the economy where we had, what, 2 or 3 dozen manufacturers of farm equipment.
Yeah.
We had, what, 8 or 9 manufacturers of automobiles.
Well, we had quite a few. We had Hudson and Packard.
Yeah, all these, and they said, well, that's, they just went the way of the dinosaur.
Kaiser Fraser.
They were inefficient. But what happened to all the folks that were working at that jobs,
Right. And then the other ones had to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
And the folks working at those jobs, there was enough money flowing through the economy, they were able to support their families on one wage earner.
That's right. And we were making enough production to feed everybody.
And we fed everybody. We clothed everybody.
Pretty much, yep.
We made our shoes.
You made our clothing. We actually had cotton mills and woolen mills in this country. We made clothes. We made cloth. Try and find a factory today that produces cotton cloth in the United States. Now, we produce cotton.
About 2 or 3 of them.
We produce cotton, but we don't make much cotton cloth.
No. And so, well, it's, but that's, I mean, man, going out working, man, that's,
See, this is the problem with the current economic theory, the economic religion, as I was saying, is that it thinks that the only relationship between labor and capital is the only place that things happen. That relationship between labor and capital is the only thing that makes stuff happen. And we know that that's just a lie. That's not true. It's just not true.
Well, we're back to the capital tree again.
That's correct, yeah. Well, you were going to say something to the people driving in their cars on the...
I don't know. I forgot.
Driving down the freeway. Well, it's a...
Here's another sign that the American families are being economically destroyed. The poorest 40% of all Americans now spend more than 50% of their incomes just on food and housing.
Right. Yep. And that doesn't include transportation. Yeah.
No. Doesn't include you driving down the interstate, the highway there.
Yep.
Doesn't include that.
What was it in the percentage again? 60%?
40. The poorest 40%.
40%. Okay.
Of all Americans now spend more than 50%.
More than half.
Of their incomes just on food and housing.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep. And they're probably working 2 jobs, or both mother and father, or spouses, whatever it might be in that family makeup. Probably 1 job apiece, or 2 jobs for one of them and 1 for the other, maybe 3 jobs.
Or 4.
Very possibly. Yeah, it's kind of like the conversation between Alice and the Red Queen, in Through the Looking Glass, and what Alice found there. Alice looked around and saw everybody running. Everybody was running everywhere, and she finally said, "Why is everybody running so fast?" And the Red Queen looked at her, and she said, "My dear, you have to run this fast just to stay in one place. If you want to get anywhere, you have to run twice as fast." And that's kind of what we're after these days, is running twice as fast for half as much. But it's helpful to the people who try to run the economy, because that way you don't have enough time to think about what they're doing.
Right.
We can keep you in the dark. We can keep you ignorant of the bad policies that make things work the way they work.
Well, it's just like, why? Okay, why? If you had the ability, all of you folks out there listening, part of the masses, if you had the ability, and it was totally lawful, that you could create all the money you needed, would you ever be in debt? Ever?
And would you ever give up that privilege once you had it?
Yes. Would you give it up and say, well, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't need to do this.
Right. Yeah. See, that's how difficult it is for these people who are creating money out of nothing and loaning it to people because there's nothing else available. That's the essence of the what's their name? The Rothschilds Baron Rothschild's comment about let me issue a nation's money and I care not who makes its laws.
Yes. And here we are. On another break. And the phone lines are open. 877-254-7524.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the left behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
For raw materials, Norm's been around since 1936. The website, normeconomics.org. normeconomics.org. For those Americans that don't own a home, 50% of them spend more than one-third of their incomes just on rent. The price of school lunches has risen to the $3 mark at many public schools across the nation. The price of ground beef has doubled since 2009. Well, there we go. The producers of that ground beef are surely raking in the box, aren't they?
Must be, right? How could it be possible that farmers are getting 37 cents on the dollar and yet the price of ground beef has doubled? Yeah, how is that possible?
How is that possible?
Well, I can explain that for you.
Okay.
And the reason is that none of that price doubling ever went to the farmer. It all got chewed up in a corporate structure of feedlots, concentrated animal feeding operations, caseloads, feedlots, processing. I mean, think of all the things you have to do now to make pink slime edible.
Yes.
Pass the USDA requirements for edible food. You have to treat it with urea.
Ammonia.
Ammonia, that's correct. And they use urea, which is made out of natural gas. And so they use natural gas in gobs in order to process the pink slime to give you a piece of ground beef that has doubled in price. None of that price ever made it back to the farmer.
And they also, don't forget, the CO2 industry, as they inject the meat with carbon dioxide to, well, heighten the color.
Keep the color. Keep it from turning gray.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Make it look pretty. Make it stand out there on the meat counter for a longer time.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, those are the sorts of things that go into one of the reasons, of course, is because that 63 cents that should be going to the farmer doesn't go to the farmer. It goes to the middlemen, the processor, all those folks who work on a percentage markup instead of a cost markup. And so they've got lots of money to play with at that point. I mean, I don't begrudge them their profit margin. They need the profit margin. They do good work, most of them. Most of the time, if you find an honest butcher who's interested in feeding his customers good meat, of course, he generally won't get that out of a CAFO. But anyway, that's something everybody needs to pay attention to. Make sure you find a good butcher that's giving you healthy meat. But the cheap food policy has resulted in the cost of ground beef doubling. Since 2009, 6 years?
Yes.
Yeah. Doubled in 6 years.
So has your wages out there, folks, doubled in 6 years?
Right.
Has it even gone up 1/10?
And if you correct for inflation, it's actually gone down.
Yes. Inflation? What inflation? We
Really?
don't have enough inflation.
1.6% isn't enough.
We're on our top of the hour news break. Stay tuned. Question, comment, 877-254-7524. We'll be right back.
Now you can reach the American Freedom Network at our...
Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
Crisis in Syria, Warren Levinson reports.
The UN Secretary-General says the world has to act to head off an unfolding massacre at the Yarmouk refugee camp in Syria.
Our refugee camp is beginning to resemble a death camp.
But Ban Ki-moon says he's made uneasy by plans to eject militants of the so-called Islamic State by force.
We should look at addressing this issue at the roots and try to establish an inclusive society.
An estimated 18,000 Syrians and Palestinians are trapped inside Yarmouk. After a 2-year government siege, IS fighters overran much of the camp last week.
President Obama says he is nearing a decision